Welcome and welcome back.
Hey, today we're going to talk about the arm bar. Just a few pointers that we come across for if your goal is thoracic mobility. Just a couple things we see that might be helpful to you. Roger, what do you think?
Are we going?
Yeah, we're rolling. We're on.
Rolling. We're on.
Okay. And you even did it. you started us off great.
Yeah, there are a couple.
Okay, let's get into it.
So again, we need to frame the arm bar in context. We're not saying that there's only one way to do an arm bar. There are actually several. We're not saying that you can't move through other parts of your spine, because you can, but we can't determine that. We don't know you. We don't know the context. So we're not going to make a determination as far as this is good, this is bad. That's not what we're saying. What we are working with, though, is the most commonly stated objective that we hear is thoracic mobility. That's usually why people claim they're training the arm bar. The problem is they're not actually moving through the thoracic spine. They're not pushing their thoracic spine to move in any way, whether it's through maintaining a particular position, catching a good breath, whatever it happens to be. So we want to show you a few things that you can do to set yourself up to make sure that you are moving through the area where you say you want to move. So, where'd the thingy go?
For some reason, you took it far away. So if you don't know how to get into an arm bar, check out another video on that. But for now, this is where we're at.
So this yoga block, especially because we have this tiny little baby torso here.
Oh,
that's about all we're really working with here. It goes up a little higher, but it's high. This is where it is. We're not working this down here. This is the lumbar region. So what we want to do is we want to effectively lock this down. We want to find ways to restrict movement other places. Very simple concept. If we want to move here, then we want to isolate the ability to move through the lower spine. So one of the first things I'm going to do, especially with someone like Jeremiah, he's got really, really long legs and they're heavy. So the weight of his leg is carrying him over. You can also use this if you have some mobility restrictions, but the weight of his leg is carrying him over, and it's hard to see from here, but he's getting a bit of a disconnect. So immediately, I want to put his knee up on a foam roller. I'm going to bring that hip down. Comfortable there?
Yep.
Okay. So a few things happen here. One, his leg is not going too far over. It's not twisting him. Okay. When he's got this kettlebell overhead, if this kettlebell needs to stay vertical and his leg is pulling him this way, we've effectively got a twist. So right from the gate, or right out of the gate, we're not setting him up to succeed. Second thing we can do is he can actually drive a little bit of pressure of this knee down into the block. This is going to help him maintain a nice stable base. Again, we want the pelvis to be stable, and we want the lumbar spine to be effectively locked. The second thing we want to do, put your arm down. The second thing we want to do is we want to make sure he's not extending through the spine. Okay, it's a very, very common thing to get that extension. Really simple way to minimize that extension is to just exhale. Okay, when he does that, his abdominals are going to contract. It's a forced exhalation. His abdominals are going to contract. It's going to bring him a little closer to closer to the front into flexion. It's going to minimize that extension. So far we've got the hip blocked off. We use the breath. Stop it. It's creepy. We've got the hip blocked off. We've got the breath that's keeping the ribs down. So we're minimizing that extension, and now we can watch that, because that's a very common place where people want to bail out. Looks like they are getting crazy range of motion, but they're really not. They're just going into a lot of extension. So these are the first two things for the setup. Now, what do you notice about his head? I notice he looks very, very uncomfortable. Okay, either you got a small head, a small arm. Actually, is that comfortable?
That's better.
Okay, so that's better. If it's not better, then you want to fix that. Arm position. Now, should the arm be overhead? The simple answer is it depends. The less simple answer is, does he have the requisite shoulder flexion to get there? Now, ideally we want to stretch here, but if stretching here, if his lats are too tight, his lat, when it gets tight, is going to pull him into extension. So Don't have this as your prime driver. If his arm needs to be a little off vertical, I'm okay with that. Ideally, we want a nice straight line between here and here. But again, we don't know what he's capable of. If he's got some mobility restrictions there and he's got some mobility restrictions there, and we're cueing a super long leg, okay? So push that leg down, and I say, oh, I want it to be in line with the pelvis. Okay, well, now if he doesn't have that length, I'm moving him into an anterior tilt, and now I want this crazy arm here. He doesn't have the lat length, now he's going into extension. So we've cued an anterior tilt from the bottom, and we've cued spinal extension because his lat is too tight here, and suddenly we've got extension. So ideally, this arm straight, that leg straight is cool, but if we need to put a little slack into this, if we need to bend the elbow a little bit or bring it down, same with the arm, or same with the leg rather, totally cool. This is the show. This is what we're here to mobilize. So let's focus on that as the goal. So recapping, we've got the knee, we've got the breath to maintain that flexion, and we're looking at our leg, our arm position to make sure that we're not pulling him into extension, and we've got a nice comfortable head position. So this is what a lot of the normal armbar setup is going to look like. The intention is to get all the way over, almost onto your face, and show off your fantastic mobility. We want to show what this actually looks like. He does not have the mobility to do this, so go ahead and do it. Do your best. Do your best. Try not to. Don't do it stupid, but just try and get that all the way over. Okay, so what we see here is we see an arm that's having a really hard time staying parallel. We've got a shoulder that wants to pop up because he doesn't have room to do whatever he's trying to do right now. We've got a ton of motion through the lumbar spine. We do have a little bit of mobilization through the T-spine. He's probably going to feel it here, but he probably feels it other places, like under his shorts, a lot more than he feels it in his T-spine. So this is what a bad arm bar is going to look like. And again, you know, straighten that right leg.
Oh,
Your other right leg. There we go. Oh, look how much more range he has. Look at this amazing mobility. Again, this is the section. This is what we're trying to mobilize. It's not moving.
It is.
It's not. After a long break, because he did in fact get a glute cramp while he was trying to do the last arm bar. So we're going to set this up right, and hopefully his butthole doesn't explode. So we're going to
in that kind of video.
We're going to go ahead and do the block here. So go ahead and bring that knee across. And I'm even bring it higher here. Is that comfortable?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to make sure we get a little tuck here. Okay. Want to drop that hip. That leg's in a comfortable place to drive. How's your butt?
Good.
Okay, so you're fine in this position.
Yep.
Okay, so he can drive that bottom leg long as he doesn't move lose the pelvis. Okay, we're gonna exhale. We're gonna drive a little bit of flexion here. Abs are on. Okay, head is comfortable. And he's just off vertical with his arm. Don't make those adjustments until you get deeper into this. Okay, we want to externally rotate a little bit just for safety. Let that bell, if it's going to fall there. Again, if this happens, just let it go. Don't fight it. Just drop it, or have a spotter. Okay. So you can go ahead, and what we're trying to do is move the sternum toward the ground. Okay. So we're going to keep all of this here. Keep pushing this arm nice and tall, long. Do you feel this working in your T-spine? Okay. Right there. Pause. So right here, give me a big exhale. There we go. He wants to lose his position here. I can have him drive down toward the ground with his eyes. And again, we want the sternum going toward the ground. Pause. Okay. Give me a big exhale. That's his limit. Bring the leg down into the block. Stabilize here. Give me some solid breaths. Keep that nice and tight. Okay. Now, ideally, we want to slow this down a little bit if we can. Mobility is not about stressing them out, so we want to cue the breath to be slower if we can. Nice full breath. we're closing some space, okay? We're making some things smaller, and he's using his breath to get them a little bit bigger. Give me a big exhale. And bring that sternum toward the ground a little bit more. That's about it. Okay, drop that hip. Good. Give me a big exhale. One more breath. Look up toward the ceiling, and let's roll out of this. Good. Something that's important when you do mobility movements, if that's in fact what an arm bar is, if that's what you're trying to achieve, is a check and a recheck. Doesn't make sense to waste time on something that's not working. If your goal is thoracic mobility to improve rotation, something like that, it's a good idea to have something to do a check with. Now, we're just using what's at hand. A mace is a pretty easy thing to use, but this, go ahead and face the camera so you can see what you're doing. So this is simple. We can line this up pretty close to his base of support. Now we can have checks in different postures, different positions. We could do it on the floor. We could do it in tall, half kneeling. We want to do this in standing to see if it translates into skills. So theoretically what we would do is we would have him keep this in contact here. This is going to give him feedback. If he tries to turn through his lumbar spine, he's going to feel it there. So I'm going to watch for extension. So let's go ahead and get you a little breath here. And he's just going to reach back. So let's say theoretically he was there, okay? And then he does his arm bar. Oh my gosh, look at how much everything has improved, okay? So you just want to give yourself a simple means of checking and rechecking, whatever that position happens to be. You can do it on the ground, seeing how far you roll as long as you don't lose that extension. And you can even turn this into an awareness drill. Here, why don't we just go through that real quick? Go ahead and get into an arm bar position. So we're going to get him in this position. We're going to drop that hip. We're going to exhale. And I'm going to give him a little bit of skin stimulation just so he can feel what's going on back here. Just like a gentle, as long as you're allowed to touch people. I do have a signed consent document. I'm allowed to touch him.
Go.
So drop the hip, making him aware of this. And what I'm going to have him do is just slide the top hand over the bottom hand. And he's going to reach as far as he can that way without going into extension. And if I need to, I can block him here, but that defeats the purpose. What we're looking at is awareness here. Give me a big exhale. Usually you can go a little farther, relax the neck. Oh, he's uncomfortable. When you start to see stuff like that going on with the neck, we're no good. So, but what we can do is we can check this, do the intervention, so do the arm bar, recheck, and see what we got.
Well, there you have it. There's a few things to consider when you're doing an arm bar if your goal is thoracic mobility. One more little added bonus is if you see somebody's head struggling like mine, give them a pillow. A little yoga block help, foam roller,
Towel,
cat, anything.
can of soda.
Yeah, whatever.
Light bulb.
Yeah.
Roll of pennies.
Yes. What else? That's
Nothing.
it, actually. Roll pennies is where it stops. And like always, if you like what we have, please feel free to give us a subscribe, a like, a share, whatever you like. And hopefully your mobility improves. Mobility. Stay mobile.